Right now, somewhere in the Tanzanian bush, a Hadza man is stretched out in the shade of an acacia tree, watching clouds drift across the afternoon sky, and he has absolutely nowhere to be. He finished what he needed to do hours ago. The Hadza are among the last people on Earth still living the way every human being lived for roughly 300,000 years, and researchers who spend time with them keep returning with the same report. These people are not suffering. Ancient humans worked somewhere around 2.5 hours a day, hunting, gathering, processing food, everything required to stay alive. Most people reading a calendar right now have already exceeded that before their second cup of coffee. So the question worth asking is not how they survived on so little work. The question is what they actually did with the rest of their time. In 1968, anthropologist Richard Lee published detailed time use data he had collected among the Kungsan of the Kalahari, tracking their daily activity down to the hour. His numbers came out to roughly 15 hours of work per week. Not per day, per week. Your ancestors did not have performance reviews. They did not carry debt. They did not have a Monday because every day was structured the same way. A few hours of necessary effort followed by a long, open afternoon that belonged entirely to them. Lee's work triggered decades of follow-up research, and the basic finding has held up across groups on multiple continents. Hunter-gatherers work less than almost anyone alive today, and they spend the time they save on each other. Sunrise. You wake up when the light shifts, not when an alarm fires into your ear. You slept on a hide over packed grass, close enough to the fire that someone was tending through the night to still feel its warmth. Everything you own is within arm's reach. A digging tool, a bow, a few wrapped hides, maybe a string of beads your daughter made. There are around 25 people in your camp, and you have known all of them your entire life. Your grandmother is a few feet away. Your children are already moving. Nobody is checking the time, because time is not the unit being measured. The first thing that happens every morning is not work. It is conversation. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years recording how Bushman communities spent their hours, and what she found was that casual talk was not a break from daily life. It was the structure of daily life. Who took an extra share of last night's food? Who has been coughing? Who handled a dispute well, and who didn't? This conversation was also the camp's entire legal system. The Kung didn't use physical punishment to enforce social norms. They used talk. If a hunter started hoarding meat or acting like his contributions made him superior, the camp mocked him until the behavior stopped. Whispers traveled fast, and a reputation that spread to neighboring camps was a reputation that followed you everywhere. The harshest outcome a hunter-gatherer faced was being unwelcome in every camp within walking distance. It almost never happened, because everyone understood the stakes. Richard Lee saw this system operate on himself in 1969. He had been living with the Kung for years when the Christmas season arrived, and he decided to do something generous. He bought the largest, best-fed ox he could find and brought it to camp as a gift. The Kung ridiculed it for weeks. They told him the animal was bony, the meat would be tasteless, that he had clearly wasted his money. Lee was genuinely baffled because the ox was in excellent condition. An old man finally explained it to him directly. When a Kung hunter brings back a significant kill, the camp never celebrates it. They criticize it. And the bigger the kill, the more elaborate the criticism. Because a man who starts believing his contributions make him exceptional becomes a man who might one day stop sharing. They had applied the same correction to Lee. He had brought a real gift, so they had to cut him down to size. Mid-morning, the hunters gather and head out. Frank Marlowe, who spent decades studying the Hadza, documented that on any given day, the majority of hunters return empty-handed. A successful kill comes through maybe once every few days, sometimes less. A hunter might cover 20 miles, spend hours following a wounded animal, and come home with a couple of small birds and nothing else. When they do land a large animal, their arrows carry poison extracted from the sap of the desert rose, and they track the animal for hours through the bush while the toxin does its work, taking down animals as large as giraffe. But the hunters are not what keeps the camp fed day to day. That is the women. Among the Hadza, women provide more than half of all calories consumed, going out in groups of 3 to 8 every morning and returning with consistent, reliable food that does not depend on luck or a perfect shot. The grandmothers are often the most productive gatherers in the entire group. Women in their 50s and 60s routinely bring back more food per outing than mothers half their age, and many of them are still walking 8 to 10 miles a day into their 70s. Anthropologists call this the grandmother hypothesis, the idea that postmenopausal women feeding their grandchildren gave the whole species a survival advantage significant enough to explain why human females are the only primates who live for decades past their reproductive years. Children come along on these outings from an early age. A 3-year-old Hadza girl follows her mother with a small digging stick of her own. By 6, she can locate food independently. By 10, she is contributing meaningfully. Anthropologist David Lancy found across dozens of traditional communities that children learned primarily through mixed-age play and close observation of adults. Older children teaching younger ones, adults rarely stepping in, children picking each other up when they fell. Midday. Food comes back to camp and gets distributed immediately and without negotiation. Sharing is not a courtesy, it is a structural rule. A Hadza man who kills a large animal does not own the meat from that kill. He gives it out. He often receives one of the less desirable cuts himself. Researchers believe this relentless redistribution is part of what drove the development of the human brain. Keeping track of who contributed, who held back, who stepped up in a lean week, who quietly took more than their share requires a level of social computation that no other species has been documented performing. Afternoon. The camp goes quiet in the heat. Nobody pushes through it. People stretch out in the shade, repair equipment, weave baskets, groom each other, talk. The grooming sounds trivial, but it takes an hour and functions mostly as an excuse for sustained physical closeness with people you trust. Conflicts do come up, affairs, grudges, stolen objects, but the resolution mechanism in a camp where you can pack everything you own in about 15 minutes and walk to the next group is simple and effective. You leave for a few weeks, the situation cools, and you return when the tension has dissolved. The Bushmen had a term for this: voting with your feet. Most people today cannot exercise that option because they have a mortgage and a job and a lease on a car that costs more per month than a hunter-gatherer's total material possessions. Late afternoon, visitors arrive from neighboring camps a few miles out, trading information and maintaining the bonds that keep a wider network of maybe 100 or more people connected across generations. The hunters drift back in, some nights with a kill, most nights without, and the women who spent the day gathering without drama or ceremony quietly become the ones the camp actually ate because of. Evening comes. Roots go into the coals. Meat goes into pouches with hot stones. Fruit gets split. Seeds get softened for children. Then everyone eats together, all of them. The same people who have done this every night for as long as anyone can remember. The same arrangement humans maintained for 300,000 years before someone invented the concept of eating alone at a desk while answering messages from people they've never met.